Hello and welcome back to my channel and my kitchen and to the cabinet over the bread box. This is a pantry cooking slash use it up challenge. This is where I take a look around my kitchen and I try to use up stuff that's hanging out in my pantry, fridge, and freezer in order to delay going to the grocery store and make sure that we are making good use of the food that we have already purchased. If you are new to my channel, I try to do a video like this about once a month where I look around my kitchen at open packages of things, maybe produce that is past its prime, different things that have been hanging out in my pantry, fridge, and freezer for a while, and I make an effort to make meals or snacks or recipes for my family from those items. This is a money-saving tactic because we're making good use of the food that we've already paid for and trying to reduce our waste, and also we're delaying going to the grocery store and spending more money by a few days. I have a whole playlist of these videos linked in the description box below, so you can go and check that out if you want some more ideas about how I do this type of thing. I also have a pantry cooking ebook that I put out a few months back featuring 20 recipes from my pantry cooking videos from last year, 2021. I will leave that linked in the description box below, and I am going to put it on sale for 50% off for 7 days from the day this video posts until 7 days after. So you can follow the link in the description box and check that out if you are interested. Hello, it is Wednesday. It is actually the Wednesday of Holy Week, the week leading up to Easter, and my husband and the children don't have any obligations at church tonight, but I do, because one of the things they do not cancel during this week is choir and orchestra rehearsal, because we do a big program on Good Friday, and then of course we have Easter, which is lots of really fun special music, and I'm a part of that. I sing in the choir. If you're new here or you have recently found my channel, you may not know that I am a musician. That's my background, and I taught high school choral music for 11 years and also directed in some churches, so I thought I would throw together something really quickly for dinner. I'm going to use my Instant Pot brand slow cooker, and you'll see how I'm going to use that. I'm actually not going to use the slow cook setting. You could probably do what I think I'm going to do. Like I said, I kind of have an idea of how it's going to work out. Sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. But you could probably do what I'm thinking about doing in the Instant Pot as well. If you're familiar with how to use your Instant Pot, you could probably figure out how to finagle these ingredients into a meal using that. But I'm going to use the saute function and the rice cooking function on my slow cooker to make this meal. I have my slow cooker on the saute function, and I have half a pound of sausage in here along with about half of an onion chopped. I'm going to let this sausage cook up for a couple of minutes along with the onions, and then I'm going to add some minced garlic. Now I'm adding 2 cups of rice. I am using white basmati rice from Thrive Market. I'm adding a little bit of Tony's seasoning. Stir that around a bit. I am turning the saute function off, and now I am adding 3.5 cups of water. It's going to sizzle a little bit because it's still hot from the saute. Stir that to make sure that it's incorporated. I'm popping the lid on, and I'm going to put this on the rice setting. The low rice setting is what the manual says to cook any kind of white rice on, so that's what I'm going to set it on. And then we'll come and finish it up whenever it's done cooking. Almost forgot. I'm gonna toss in 2 ounces, which is 4 tablespoons of cream cheese. I'm just putting that on the top so that it softens up as the rice is cooking, and then I can stir it in once it's done cooking. That beeping noise means that it's done. And oh, I love this thing. It cooks the rice perfectly every single time that I've used the rice cooker. I've not tried it with brown rice or whole grain rice, but every time I've made rice dishes in here, I don't know, I just feel like it cooks it really, really well and doesn't overcook it. It doesn't burn. Very pleased with it. I'm going to add about 1.5 cups of cheese and maybe a splash of milk. And I'm just serving this with some steamed broccoli, maybe a side of fruit. Going really easy tonight, but that's definitely what I needed because I got to head out the door in half an hour for rehearsal. We got an Imperfect box today. I think I've been ordering from Imperfect for like 1.5 years, maybe almost 2 years, long enough that the children actually have their favorite items that they requested. Oh, I forgot, I had requested some flowers. We'll take those out and see what they look like here in a minute. I thought those would be nice for Easter weekend, but McKenna always asks for these, the Nature's Bakery oatmeal crumble bars. The kids always ask for apples. They usually have a pretty good, or at least lately, they've had a pretty good deal on the red peppers. I got this the last time we ordered Imperfect. It's the salty and sweet odds and ends bark. They make this in-house using upcycled ingredients, and everybody really liked it. It was gone in like a day, so I got some more. Asparagus was an okay deal this week, and got some other fruits and vegetables here. I got this one to try out, toffeed broken almonds. So these are like, again, upcycled ingredients that they repurpose to make something tasty. And this is something that Brick has requested the last few times I've ordered it. And actually Ruthie likes it also. It's some kind of French words that I probably would just butcher. Strawberry preserves. All of my kids really like this, but especially Brick and Ruthie, so they've asked me to order more of that. I will go ahead and unpack this and just give you a view of the things that I ordered. And this is not sponsored, but I will leave a link in the description box. I think when you first sign up, the bonus is $20 off your first 4 orders. I'm not sure if that has changed, but I'll try to find out and leave that in the description box for you if you were interested in trying this out. Several people mentioned having lentils, and I also had a bag that was open and only slightly used. So in here in my Instant Pot, I have those lentils. I measured out what I had before I put them in here, and then I have a 2-to-1 water ratio. I'm gonna pop my lid on my Instant Pot and lock it. I'm also gonna set it to seal, and I am going to cook these for 9 minutes. If I was going to eat these right away instead of using them in other recipes, I have a few ideas of how I wanna use them, then I would probably cook them for 10 or 11 minutes to make them a little more tender, but we're gonna start at 9. So it's gonna take a few minutes for this to come up to pressure, and then they should cook. And I am actually going to manually release the pressure once it is done cooking. I'm also going to cook up this jasmine rice just on the stove. There's about a cup in here, so I'll just follow the directions on the package for making this up. And we're gonna use this to make some lentils and rice to go along with the fajita meat tonight for fajita bowls. Last month, my husband invited some friends and family over for a little celebration for Seemindymom. We unboxed my silver play button, and we had a dinner with everybody, and we had fajitas. We had that catered, and this was in the freezer. It was leftover fajita meat, so we got it out this morning to thaw, and we're gonna have this tonight with some other things from our pantry and fridge, and have some fajita bowls and probably some nachos, maybe some quesadillas or fajitas. We'll see what we can come up with. In my skillet here, I have about 4 tablespoons of butter and then 1 onion sliced. And I'm gonna let these onions cook down and caramelize a little bit before I add the rice and the lentils to them. I have my fajita meat here on a cookie sheet or on a pan that I lined with foil. And I did add 1 bell pepper that I had in my refrigerator that I chopped up myself. And I'm just going to pop this in the oven at 400 for about 7 or 8 minutes so it can heat back through. My onions are cooking down beautifully, and they're getting really fragrant also and kind of a little bit caramelized there. And I'm just going to add about 1.5 cups of my cooked rice and maybe about 1/2 cup to 3/4 cup of lentils right here to the pan. I have not added any seasoning to this yet, and I did not season my lentils and my rice when I cooked it. You can season it however you like. I'm gonna use some of this Auntie Nono's Everything seasoning plus some fresh cracked black pepper, and I'm just going to stir that all together and let it heat through all together with the caramelized onions, and it'll be ready to eat with the fajita meat. Hey, look everybody, lentil cupcakes. Are you guys excited about lentil cupcakes?
Yum, yum.
Okay, well, these are not lentil cupcakes, no worries. These are actually going to go in the freezer once they cool, and then I'm gonna pop them out of the little cups once they are frozen, and then I can throw them into different sauces or different soups or different recipes in just little 1/2 cup portions, just kind of sneak them into different dishes to bulk something up, use less meat, get a little bit of a different kind of nutrition into those dishes, so that's what I'm doing with those. Here we go, yummy dinner made with things from the freezer and the pantry that we needed to use up. So easy, easy, easy. I posted something in my community posts a while back asking you guys what you have hanging out in your kitchens, you know, in your pantry, fridge, or freezer that you would like to use up. So I thought that I would scroll through a few of these comments, have my computer out here, and just see if I have any ideas for you. And I'm sort of operating under the idea that if I was using these items to make a pantry cooking challenge here in my kitchen, what would I do? Several of you said lentils, and I actually had lentils too, so you've already seen that. I have some ground chicken and some stuffing mixes that I would like to use. Okay, what I would do if I had those two things and I wanted to use them together, I would get on Pinterest and I would look for a breakfast casserole recipe that uses a stuffing mix. And I would use that ground chicken and add some seasonings to it to make it more like a ground chicken sausage, and cook that up and then put that into the stuffing breakfast casserole. That's probably the tack that I would take. Grits. Okay, I love grits, and there are lots of side dish and casserole recipes. Again, you can use Pinterest, you can use Google to find one. When I make grits as a single serving for myself for breakfast, I usually add just a little bit of cream cheese, salt and pepper, and just a little bit of shredded cheddar, so it's like a cheese grit. Oh, so good. Another person says grits, and also in my freezer, a bag of beets. Okay, I know this is going to sound really interesting and maybe a little bit odd, but I think there is a really good chocolate cake recipe that calls for beets. If I can hunt that down, I will leave it linked in the description box. I mean, again, I'm sure I can go on Pinterest and find something, but I feel like they used to make this in our school cafeteria and they put beets in it to add some nutrition, like cooked beets or canned beets. So I think you may have to cook them to put them in the cake, but I'll see if I can hunt that down. Somebody says barley, and one of my very favorite recipes as a child was this beef barley bake that my mom used to make. It does not have beef in it, it uses beef consomme. I came across this recipe in her recipe box as I was searching for some others for another video. And so I will actually type that recipe out for beef barley bake and put it in the description box. It does call for beef consomme, and a few of you also said you have a can of that in your pantry, and I would highly recommend that recipe, or that rice recipe. I think Mindy in the Making made it recently that calls for a can of beef consomme, a can of French onion soup, and I think rice, and it makes like a really yummy side dish. A few people have said cranberry sauce, and I don't know exactly what kind, but my mom also has a recipe for a cranberry jello salad that she used to make at Thanksgiving every single year. Again, I came across it whenever I was going through her recipe box looking for something else, and I pulled that out. So I will pop a picture up here, but I will also type that one out and leave it in the description box for you if you're interested in trying it out, if you have the right kind of cranberries. I have 2 packages of frozen bread dough, which I could obviously bake into bread, but wondering how to make plain bread dough into something else besides a loaf or a roll. My mom used to use those frozen bread doughs to make pizza bread. She would roll it out and she would put some pepperonis and cheese inside it and then roll it up and bake it that way. And then when you slice it, it has the pepperonis and cheese in the middle. We loved eating that growing up. Almost hard marshmallows, they will still melt properly. So if you throw them into like a batch of brownies, or you melt them down with some butter and put some cereal in them to make like Rice Krispie treats, they will still function in baking just the same. It's just when they get hard, they're not as pleasant to like eat on their own. Quinoa, I'm with you. I'm not a huge fan of quinoa myself. I find that if I cook it up and I throw it into like a salad or a pasta salad, that's usually the way that I would prefer to eat it if I'm going to eat it. And occasionally I will throw a little bit of it into a soup. Like if I had it on hand, I would probably use just a little bit in soups and stews until it was gone. I'm sorry, I do not have an idea for the hot pepper jelly. I actually have the same issue. I have a couple of jars of jellies, including one that is a pepper jelly that has been gifted to us, and it's still sitting in the pantry, in my own pantry, because I don't care for it and nobody else does. So I guess I'm looking for ideas about that as well. I have had this little beef roast in my freezer for a little while, and I would like to go ahead and get that out of my freezer. And I think I'm going to utilize the Instant Pot to make that tonight and make it really tender and shreddable. I'm getting a late start on this. Otherwise, I probably would have just put it in my crock pot really early in the morning and let it cook low and slow all day. But I think the Instant Pot will do the trick. So let's see what we can come up with. In my Instant Pot, I have my little beef roast. I have a couple tablespoons of butter that I put in there. I also put in about a tablespoon of this beef broth base and my packet of Italian dressing mix. I want the broth that this produces to cook something else in, so that's why I'm going kind of heavy on the seasoning. And now I'm going to add 2.5 cups of water. I hope that's going to be enough not to get a burn notice. Pop the lid on here. I'm going to set it to seal, and I am actually going to pressure cook this for 30 minutes. I want it to cook to the point where it is really tender and I can shred it with a fork. So it'll take a few minutes to come up to pressure. I'm going to let it pressure cook for 30 minutes. I'm going to let it natural release for at least 10 minutes, and then I will do a manual release and we'll see where we are. I really want to do kind of a beef and noodles, I think, is sort of what I'm going to go for with this, but I don't have any Reams noodles, and I don't think I want to use these dry noodles because I don't need this many, and I don't want to open up a package that hasn't been open. But I got these in my Imperfect box, which you saw in this video, and even though this is fettuccine, this fresh pasta is often made with eggs. So you can see it right here on the ingredient list. So this is akin to an egg noodle. I'm just gonna let these thaw for a minute, and then I'm gonna actually take a knife and just kind of chop them up into smaller pieces. And this is what I'm gonna use to make my beef and noodles in the broth that the roast should produce. Okay, let's see how this turned out. I hope it turned out okay. Really, I'm just hoping that it's shreddable. I'm very glad I started on this early tonight because this is not shreddable. So I'm actually going to pressure cook this another 20 minutes and see if I can salvage this because it's super tough. This is the first time I'm trying something like this in my Instant Pot, and this is why I like the slow cooker. It doesn't matter the cut of meat. If I cook it long enough, it's gonna be nice and tender and come apart really easily with forks. This is not even close. So I'm gonna cook it another 20 minutes. We'll see. One of the pages in my pantry cooking ebook is devoted to what we like to call Oklahoma toast. It's basically where we take whatever bread items we have lying around and we make really delicious garlic toast, especially hamburger and hot dog buns. It's a great way to use those up. I've had these brioche hot dog buns in the freezer for a while. I got them on the clearance rack, so I'm gonna use these to make up a little bit of garlic toast for tonight. I'm just going to slice them in half, brush a little bit of melted butter on them, sprinkle some garlic salt and a little grated Parmesan cheese, and pop them under the broiler for a couple of minutes, and they will be ready to go. But it's a really great way to use up any bread items that you have in your house. This is a good opportunity, a teachable moment, if you will, to say that not everything always goes to plan. Not every recipe works out. Sometimes I try things that do not work out. And unfortunately, the roast, the second time through, it still seemed pretty tough and a little bit dry. Once I started to sort of use a knife and kind of chop this up, shred it up, it wasn't as tender as it would be normally in the crock pot, but I'm still gonna try to salvage this dish, this kind of beef and noodles dish that I'm going for. It's not gonna be the best, probably. It's not gonna be as good as it would be if I'd made the roast in the crock pot, but I think maybe it'll still come together, so we'll see how it turns out. But even if it doesn't, we're gonna have some delicious noodles and some vegetables. And sometimes I just have to throw a box of macaroni and cheese on the stove for the kids and call it a night. It happens, real life. My noodles have been just sitting here in the crock pot with the lid on. I've just had it on the keep warm setting, and they're actually cooking up really nicely. I mean, just the heat from the pot and the broth has been enough to really soften those up. So what I'm going to do now is add a cornstarch slurry. I just have a tablespoon of cornstarch and a couple tablespoons of water. And I'm going to put my beef back in. And I also have just a little bit of sour cream, like maybe a 1/4 cup of sour cream in a container in the fridge. I'm gonna stir that all together, and I'm actually gonna turn the saute function on for just about 2 minutes. Just saute this on low for maybe 2 to 3 minutes so that it starts to thicken back up again, and we'll see where we are. Okay, here it is, beef and noodles. I had some asparagus that I just roasted in the oven, and then garlic toast made from those buns that I took out of the freezer. I cannot believe that I managed to salvage this. I gotta be honest, this one's probably not gonna make it into the 2022 edition of the Pantry Cooking ebook, but I was able to save it, I was able to rescue it. It is very tasty. It will do just fine for tonight.